We've been carrying the torch for a few decades. We are happy that you're here to help do that or to take it. And I think that that's incredibly positive. The other thing is that, and I think this is an important difference, the Tea Party movement grew out of frustration, grew out of people, average people out there who basically just couldn't take it anymore. They couldn't stand the encroachment of the state into their lives. They couldn't stand particularly the healthcare discussion. And I think was a reactive movement to what was going on in the country, and well expressed. Now, the Occupy movement also seemed to be a reactive movement, and it's not. I don't think it's played out completely yet. There's some serious differences. Obviously, Occupy has basically engaged in activities that are extra legal, both in terms of occupation of property, but also confrontation with law enforcement. I think that they view themselves, and in Twitter I'm in a lot of discussions with a lot of the Occupy people, and I think they view themselves as revolutionary and outside the system. And that's interesting, and I think it's also a manifestation of frustration. But I think where that becomes difficult to sustain is that the American people have not, since our revolution, been a revolutionary people. They're just not. And even during the revolution, by the way, you had a third of the people who were supporting the uprising, you had a third of the people who supported the crown, and a third of the people who just stayed out of it. And that was the actual American Revolution. So we have seen over time movements of people who want people to rise up and be revolutionary, but it doesn't happen like that in America. It happens politically in America. And Occupy doesn't seem to have metastasized itself into a political movement yet. Whether they can actually is the question. And if they don't, for better or for worse, I'm not certain they will be a meaningful movement going forward. I actually got a lot of criticism when I said this on one of the shows, that they weren't meaningful, and what I meant was the question's out right now. Will they be? What I mean by meaningful is, are they going to change the power structure here? And I, again, assume they're not going to do it in a revolutionary fashion. It can only be done electorally. That's where the Tea Party has been unbelievably effective. And that's where the Tea Party, notwithstanding the disparagement of the mainstream media and others, are still out there working, organizing, and getting ready for 2012, where I'm not certain how big a role they'll play necessarily in the presidential race, although they may play a role in behalf of the Republicans. But I think we're going to see a lot of activism on the state, local, and congressional level, and in some of the Senate races that could prove very interesting.
Could you see Occupy candidates coming in?
If I were involved in Occupy, if I were a believer of their agenda and in their movement, that is exactly what they have to do. But I don't see any of that yet, and I don't hear in the discussion that I have with a number of their sensible leaders, on Twitter and things like that, I don't see any movement toward that. I think the response is, well, we're revolutionary, we're not in the power structure, we don't want to play in that game. Okay, well then in that case, what's going to happen is law enforcement is going to come clear you out, and the elected officials will have no fealty to you. And so that may be what they want, what they don't want, but I think that's going to wind up being a consequence.